welcome to Tanakh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with episode number 31, Controversial Issues, with Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Can Noachides celebrate Christmas or even help others decorate? That's the main topic for today's show. So if you have any questions relating to this topic, you can feel free to call right on in and jump on this Christmas bandwagon. But anyway, it'll be an interesting topic, It's just something that people are curious about. One thing I used to tell people all the time, Rabbi, was, according to Torah, I'm not promoting going out to your neighbor's house and setting their Christmas stuff on fire or shooting it with a BB gun to make it class. But destroy the idols is mentioned in Torah, not making them or setting up for them. So with that said, that's kind of going to steer us in a direction today that may develop some chainmail that we don't want to participate in. So if that's the case, send it to TanakhTalkJunkmail.com. And we'll make sure it gets filtered into the right category. So, Rabbi, it's good to have you back. Nice to see you again.
Pleasure to be here. I hope everyone's having a happy Hanukkah, enjoying all the donuts and latkes and everything else. So,
and your plop
totally
fizz.
High in cholesterol and fat. That's what the holiday's all about, right?
Wonderful. Definitely. Hey, hit this. Okay, you got it, Mr. Jason Akers, Green Acres Pest Control, my good brother. All right, so anyway, yeah, it's something I've seen happen every year. It's going to happen all the time for everybody. Any Noahide that doesn't live in the Holy Land, even especially. I mean, if you're in general population, you're going to see or experience an interaction with something like Christmas or with something like Halloween, whether it's decorations or whatever the case may be, and you're going to be put in an awkward situation. It's going to happen. I've kind of mastered the grocery store. The grocery store awkwardness. They say, they always, if I hear the ladies saying Merry Christmas to everybody in line, then before she even gets a chance to rattle it off, I'll say Happy Hanukkah, or something like this. And I heard somebody say one time, Happy Hanukkah or something like that. It was really funny. But you kind of, it's like a happy holidays all jumbled into one. And it's like,
kind of like those translations that don't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
Hey, what does this mean? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Or you've got to have a neighbor who's like celebrating for Christmas, and you're going to be just walking and passing, and they're going to feel like they want you to compliment their Christmas decoration. It's like, hey, that's so pretty, or I love your lights. Where's the line on that, on what we're permitted to do? Because we don't want to be rude, but we also do want to make sure that we're setting ourselves apart in a noticeable fashion. But so with that said, I mean, how do we handle that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's it's a common thing, even by Jews who have to, let's say for business purposes, have to go to a December 25th party, and even if
right.
You're going to drink soda or something like that, is it permissible to go to? And that gets the whole question of hukos agoyim, or not going in the ways of the non-Jews. But someone was a non-Jew, right? Certainly, let's say, a Noahide, that they're not interested in converting, or they don't want to convert, are they allowed to say, Happy Xmas? So, the best way out of the problem, Happy Holidays is generic.
Right.
That is definitely more, more genetic, gets you out of the problem. You probably won't offend,
right.
You probably won't offend anyone, either, unless they say it. I want you to say it. But
right.
It's only so far you can go. And as I'm always fond of saying, you can't turn the Torah into a pretzel. So, in such a case, so we certainly hold, that any of these things are pagan. So a non-Jew, not allowed to participate in any, of any of that. I mean, I've gotten questions. You know, what about going to, a neighbor's or family members or whatever, and they have a tree. Are you allowed to go there? Now, the tree itself is not idolatry. They're not worshiping the tree, at least, not that I'm aware of. So,
Right.
I mean, all right, it's a pagan thing. It's certainly not a good thing. But what am I doing by going there? It doesn't matter, blood relatives or not, parents, siblings, whatever the case is. By going there and even eating kosher food, what am I doing? I'm saying I'm coming, I'm eating my own thing, I'm different, but I'm there. It's
Right.
kind of like
Right.
someone once told me many years ago. They had a sibling that intermarried, right? They had a Jew married a non-Jew. They said they went to the wedding under protest. I said, what do you mean under protest? I said, well, I had kosher food there, this, that, but they knew I was under protest. I said, what? You were stuffing your face at the smorgasbord of kosher food, whatever you had or whatever you're doing. I said, what kind of protest is that? Like you were handing out Tootsie Rolls to everybody? I mean, like, what are you talking about? Under protest means you don't go. Like someone actually told me a story tonight that they had a son that intermarried. Person wasn't, so religious, I guess a little more traditional, flew like across the world, came to the wedding and left after the ceremony. Whatever ceremony there was, they left after the ceremony, and that was a form of protest. I mean, okay, I would have thought of a, better way to spend my money, and that would have been not going. That's a better way of
Right.
protest.
Right.
Right? But if someone's gonna say, we want you to come, whatever, it doesn't really mean so much. I mean, for them, so why are they putting up a tree, right? So it might be just what we call, this is the custom that we do. It's not like we're talking that they're so attached to it. There's these Bible thumpers that saying, yeah, we're going to do this, and and you have to come, and we're going to rub it in your face. Like obviously that's not the case. Most people are not, not usually that hostile. But even if it's just a tree, etc. Am I allowed? Would a non-Jew be allowed? Would a Noahide be allowed to, to go there? So if you hold that, all that's idolatry, paganism, whatever, so all right, you're not partaking in it, that's true. But at the same time, if a person's there, what are they showing? They're showing that there's nothing wrong with it. Now, it'd be different if they invited you for Thanksgiving. Now, Thanksgiving, I always tell people, out of all the holidays that they could celebrate, secular holidays, Thanksgiving's not so bad. It's about football and turkey, not necessarily in that order. And everyone would agree it's not a religious holiday, it never was.
Right.
We just made peace with the Indians and we slaughtered them. So,
Right.
So that's what it's all about. So that is if you can't get together on Shabbos or on festivals, right? So that is probably the safest day to get together, except probably for Mother's Day and Father's Day. Now, Mother's Day and Father's Day also have no religious significance. It's just a holiday for Hallmark, right?
Right.
Hallmark's the one that, and the flowers, they're right there, wherever the florist, they're the ones making all the money, right? But that is no inherent, that's like Parv, or as I know someone would say, it's like neutral, like Switzerland. So, it has no bearing one way or the other. Right, so if it has no bearing, and it's going to be kosher food. It's not going to be so bad to be there. Family members not going to, try and kill you in the process or make fun of you or whatever the case is. I don't see why it should be a problem. I mean, I would say in general, it's probably not a good thing to do anyway. It's probably going in the ways of the non-Jews. But if this is the only time, like during the year, that's part that you can get together with family, all things being equal, no one's going to be slaughtering each other or making fun of each other or making it uncomfortable, then I don't see why Thanksgiving should be a problem. So someone will say, so what about December 25th, or what about any time up until that point or whatever, going into someone's house, say, no, I'm not doing anything, I don't believe in it, doesn't matter, well, what's the big deal? Again, you got to draw a certain line. You're not walking into a church. That's also, nothing to talk about being forbidden. But the question is, how far do we go? How far does the person go to show that, this thing is forbidden or not? Right? That is, that's the question. There could be leeway. Let's say for the sake of, family harmony, right? But not everything is permissible, for family harmony. You can't just break the Torah and say, well, family's the most important thing. This is what you have to do. Well, if family's going out to a non-kosher restaurant, I can't go there. But it's for the sake of the family. Well,
Okay, now
you know,
now you're bringing up the restaurant idea is a great point for a Jew, but for a ger, not so much important. However, use that same scenario with like Christmas, for example. Let's say that I'm staying with my folks through the winter, and they're getting ready to decorate the house for Christmas, and they need my help. What do I do?
fake that you're sick.
But I mean, is the point is really don't get involved in that to stay away
You
from
shouldn't
it
get involved. I mean,
as a
I mean,
Noahide even.
it's a Noahide if it's a
Yeah,
pagan thing.
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay,
If it's a pagan thing, you're gonna say, but it doesn't mean anything to me. It's nothing. It's whatever. Again, no one's worshiping a tree.
right,
If it would be idolatry, and you're decorating some idolatrous thing, that there's nothing to talk about, right? In this case, I wouldn't call it. It's not idolatry. Nobody's worshiping the tree. The question is, this is what it represents, right? This
right,
is, it's something. It represents something you don't want to have, any part of. So you say, well, it's against my religion. Well, they might get offended by that. Okay,
right.
people get offended by, by a lot of things, but nobody, if you walked into a Japanese restaurant, they say, take off your shoes. You're gonna say, I'm offended. They're gonna say, fine, don't eat here.
Right, right.
Go ahead. I don't shop here anyway. Like, okay, so what? No one's even going to ask that question because they're going to do whatever it takes to eat in that restaurant. And if they tell you to take off your shoes, just take off your shoes, right?
Right, right,
So something like this, why will people get offended? Because what you're doing is you're telling them what they're doing is wrong,
right,
right? And nobody wants to hear that. Like, come on, it
right.
doesn't, like, what's the big deal? Like, if someone once told me, said, oh, if you eat something non-kosher, I'm not going to tell anyone. Well, like, thank you very much. Like, I'm worried about you, So, that's the whole thing. It's more than what it looks like. Someone walking by, and they say, oh, look, this person's helping put up the tree. It must be, he believes in it, right?
Right.
We're not necessarily worried about what someone walking by, is going to see. The question is, you're living a certain type of lifestyle, right? And this
Right.
goes against that lifestyle, right? It flies in the face of what you're trying to do,
Certainly.
right? So someone says, well, can you help me put this up? And you can say, it's against my religion.
Mm-hmm.
So some people may then throw the tree at you.
Right, right,
They go,
right.
here, you look better under the tree. But, that a person, this is a very delicate it's a very delicate thing, whether it's a non-Jew coming out of Christianity or a secular Jew becoming religious. You got to try and find some level of balance, but sometimes, and this is certainly not going to be so popular to say, and that's why people watch the show because they're waiting for what controversial thing is going to come out of my mouth, and that is that there
Yeah,
are
for
times
sure.
that you just can't do it,
Yeah.
and that's
Right,
it.
right.
They're going to say bend the rules, do this, do that. If it's forbidden and there's no way around it, there's no way around it. If there's a way around it, and it can be done in such a way, that's one thing. Even if you don't necessarily want to do it, it could be for the sake of, family harmony. It could be okay, right? And extenuating circumstances, all kinds of crazy.
Explain. Give me an example. Like for example, and I'm really pushing this whole idea of the decorating for Christmas because to me that's the most practical one that would apply to most people that I know.
Okay.
Whether it's that or, I mean, and mainly because I don't use Halloween because Halloween really isn't a Christian celebration, even though a lot of Christians do celebrate it. Most Christian churches will do like tailgate parties, like trunk or treat sort of thing to avoid it. So, but Christmas is uniform. Everyone celebrates Christmas in the Christian. So that's why I'm actually picking on that like directly. So what is an extenuating circumstance of someone who is an adult or even someone who's not. Let's say that there was a 16 or 17-year-old who's found the importance of Torah and is trying to stay away from that. Describe what you mean by on both perspectives as someone who is under the authority of their parents, and also one who really shouldn't be because they're old enough to be out of the house.
if they're under the authority of their parents, what are the parents going to say? And I've heard this. Parents will say, well, one of the 10 Commandments, is to honor your father and your mother, right? But right before that, it says you have to keep Shabbos. So Rashi and other commentaries learn out what's the juxtaposition of the verses, that even if a parent tells you desecrate Shabbos, you don't listen to them. Now, even if you're under the guidance of your parents, and your parents say, I want you to help me with this tree, right? And it goes against everything you believe in, you can defy them and say no, right? That will not apply where parents have the upper hand, right? They can't force their kids to do something that, goes against belief, even though it's not, even though it's not idolatry. I can't think of a case offhand where helping out with with all that should get you out of the family harmony should get you out of the problem. Yeah, I mean, I can think of other cases not related to this, that for the sake of family harmony, it would be okay. It doesn't necessarily look so good, but it wouldn't necessarily be a problem. In this case, I think you got me on that one. If a person's an adult, right, we'll make it easy. If he's adult, even if his parents want him to help, he still, he doesn't have an obligation. He doesn't have an obligation to listen. One of the things we have to always keep in mind is that, when a person's growing in Torah, whatever age, if he's 17, he's 25, he's 35, whatever the case is, whatever they're doing, is this a good thing or a bad thing for my soul? Am I growing closer to God or further away? If I have a doubt, right, then I have then I have to ask somebody who's competent that could that could answer the question. But that's a person would have to say, even if they would say, if a person would say, there's nothing, it's not going to inherently affect me, right? In other words, it's not going to affect me in a negative way. So what if it's not, if it's not idolatry or it looks bad or whatever? Like, what should be the big deal? What people don't seem to get, and again, this is my my fanatical side coming out, so you can take it with a grain of salt. So I'll tell the following story. There's a story with Shlomo Zalman of Liadi, right, who wrote the Tanya. He's the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he had a student that wanted to go to university, and the Baal Tanya said to the student, you got to be careful, going to university, because there are a lot of subjects there you shouldn't learn, and there's a lot of heresy there, and you got to be really careful. So the student answered, well, I've been learning by you for many years. I didn't become such a great tzaddik, right? I didn't become so so righteous. So he said that if I go to university, because I was by you, you're such a big tzaddik, I didn't get affected positively by that, so I'm not going to be affected negatively, by going to university.
Right.
So the Baal Tanya answered. He says, no. He says, you don't understand. He says Tuma, impurity, makes you impure just by touching it. It doesn't have to envelop you. All you have to do is touch it to become impure. You want to become pure? You want to reach holiness? Okay, that's going to take a lifetime of work, right? Just because you were by me for many years, you're right. Not necessarily going to make you, so right. It's going to put you in the right direction, and you're going to do whatever you want with it. But what a lot of people don't realize is you're going to say, what? It's spiritual cooties? Like, nah. So what?
Right.
If I touch the tinsel, what's it going to do? It's going to turn me into an elf? It's going to turn me into Alf? Like, come on. What is it going to do? Right? But the reality is that where do these, what do these things stem from? What do they come from? They come from, like the most impure things. I mean, in general, not, we're not talking about sorcery or, any of these things. But this is what it represents. It comes from an impure source. Right? I don't think there's any question, I don't think there's any question about that. So that being said, there is some sort, of spiritual influence a person can have, even by just helping put it up the tree, even if he doesn't believe in it. Why? Because there is something there, right? There is some, negative force or whatever, whatever you want to call it, that can have a, I can have a negative, make a negative impression, on a person, even if they don't feel it,
So
right?
this
Their
is
soul, their soul may feel it. Yeah.
Rabbi Singer used an analogy that made good sense. It would be like walking into a bar, that's filled with smoke and alcohol, and expect to walk out and not smelling like smoke. I mean, it's going to have an effect on you no matter what. And you walk out in the rain without an umbrella, you're going to get wet. You're going to be affected by it no matter what.
Hmm.
So I guess that's kind of the direction it's going.
Yeah. So, you just have to, like I tell people, when it rains here in Israel, I'm always fond of saying you just have to know how to walk between the drops. It's like, yeah, that's great, but you're soaking wet.
Yeah.
I said, well, I didn't say I knew how to do it, but
Right.
there is, even if we don't feel, even if we don't see it, we don't necessarily, even if we don't necessarily feel it, it's, it's definitely there. It can be, in any number of, in any number of forms. So when it comes to, when it comes to any of these type of things, Jew or non-Jew, we want to certainly stay away from it like the plague for the sole reason that we just don't want, there are enough negative things we can do to ourselves, give et cetera. We don't need to add on to that. We don't need to make our lives that much more, difficult, regardless of what we see or what we don't see. And I think, if our eyes were really truly opened, I think we'd see a world that we don't really imagine, and what's really out there, and how spiritual forces work, and how all that, you know, how what a person does, what the ramifications are, where it goes, how it comes back down to this world spiritually, physically, all these different things. I think we live our lives, a lot different. That's why, we're not given the eyes to see. It's brought down as a medrash, I think, according to Kabbalah, also it's brought down that, when a person cuts down a tree, they saw a tree, for wood, for paper, whatever it is. We don't hear the tree scream, out of the pain of being,
Right.
cut down. Why don't we hear it? Because if we heard it, you'd never cut down a tree. Imagine,
Oh yeah. Right. Right.
you would never, we wouldn't have paper, we wouldn't have wood, you wouldn't have anything. So, just because you don't hear it, doesn't mean, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But, but again, putting ourselves in these situations, these are tough situations, because, these are the times, it's family time, families want to get together, etc. And, you're the dum dum that, like, sits out and says, I'm not going to do it, whatever. They're going to think, of course you're a wacko, which, people can think what they want. But, that there are times, there are times like this that a person has to stand their ground. Giving in. It's not about being as open minded till your brains fall on the floor. Giving in and say, oh, being with the family is so important, and it's the most important thing. Secular Jews say this all the time. There's nothing more important than family. Which I add to that, yeah. And once they intermarry, they're not family anymore. They're
Right.
blood relatives, but they're not spiritually related. They're not related anymore. It's like, oh, you've changed and you've done this and you've done that. It has nothing to do with what I've done. We're reconnecting to that link in the chain, and you're just breaking that chain. Because that just means they don't want to believe in it, because then that has repercussions. So same thing, non-Jews are no different. They want, they certainly want everyone in the family to be together. They don't want anyone to be separate. And, and they have a bigger reason for that, because you don't believe in that, or you don't do it, you're going to fry in hell forever. So that's pretty big deterrent. So when it comes to family, this definitely should not, this shouldn't matter. This is a principle. You can't go around. If it's something in general, right? Now let's bring back Thanksgiving, right?
Okay.
Thanksgiving is not it's not a pagan holiday, right? But what is it? I mean, we all know what it was anyway.
Right.
But what is it? What is it today? It doesn't mean anything. But what it is by doing that, and even if you don't eat turkey, I mean, I guess that goes against the whole day, but even if you don't eat turkey and you say, I'm not doing it for the sake of Thanksgiving, I'm just doing it because everyone's getting together in general. If that's the only time you can get together, I wouldn't necessarily say that's a problem. But how do you get out of the problem saying that's going in the ways of the non-Jews, right? There
Right.
is such a concept, what we call chukos hagoyim, of going in the ways of the non-Jews, right? And going in the ways of the non-Jews, the Talmud speaks many, many things. We spoke about this once before, about going to stadiums and, football games and entertainment and all these, it's exactly what the opposite, of what Hanukkah is. Because the Greeks wanted the Jews to be exactly like them, come to their gymnasiums, come to their stadiums, go to the universities. As long, you want to keep Judaism in your house, that's fine. But we want you to be like us. So if we're like them, guess what happens? We assimilate, we disappear, right? So
Right.
the Greeks had a very good, they had to give, it was very subtle. They weren't, it wasn't like Purim where they tried to kill us. There were things, they did make decrees, they did make hard decrees, but it's certainly nothing like, nothing like the annihilation of the story of Purim. So this goes, if you understand what the light of Hanukkah is, and it's going against this Greek world that we live in. I mean, that is the world we live in today. A lot of what we do and how we study is based on, certainly based on the Greeks and their society and their culture and, and all that. So, what do we call that? What is rabbinic literature called? They call it darkness. I mean, you would think that like the greatest enlightenment in the history of man, in secular terms, is called darkness. Yeah, why? Because it elevates the body, not the soul, right? It's worship of the body. So if it's worship of the body and not the soul, that means that you're worshiping yourself, right? You're taking God out of the picture. So that's definitely, that's definitely bad. So what is Thanksgiving? So Thanksgiving, you can say, well, we give thanks also. We have, and there will be Orthodox Jews that will celebrate it, and probably more on the modern side. But the same way, we have an obligation to be thankful, and America's been great for the Jewish people, in terms of being able to practice their own religion. That there's nothing to talk about. That's definitely true. Also caused the greatest assimilation almost in the history of man. But okay, that's a side point. But what you're doing is you're saying going after this is no problem. Right? And it's exactly what the non-Jewish world does. So, a person has to learn, and we learn this from, a very young age. If, you're brought up this way, that I have to be in the secular world, that there's no question. The question is how much of the secular world I have to put inside of myself.
Right.
Right? We have to guard ourselves. Why should we be running around, on a crazy day, let's say like Thanksgiving, and everything shut down. You got parade, you got this, but it's all about food and football. That's really the bottom line. Okay, so you get together with family also when you can get along with them, right? So you get together with them, but at the same time, the message that you're giving off, people say is you're normal, you're part of society. This is what society does. Great, that's what society does. Who says that's part of my psyche? Who says that's part of my, again, is this good for my soul or is it not good for my soul? If it's not good for my soul, I shouldn't be doing it. But we don't, that's the problem. We don't, there are certain things that, we'll justify, we'll give reason for. We'll say why should it be a problem? Why should it, why should it affect us in a negative way? We just, the evil inclination doesn't need an opening. Right? It never needs an opening. You give it an opening, it takes, it takes the whole thing. The Vilna Gaon, Elijah Vilna, about 250 years ago, in his commentary on Proverbs, says, now this is an interesting thing. How could a Jew ever, when it talks about the mitzvah of tshuva, the mitzvah of repentance, the Rambam says that you have to repent for something you did by accident. So the question commentaries ask is, what do you mean? I did it by accident. If I did it by accident, why'd I have to repent? Okay, I wasn't careful. I should have been more careful. I understand. But I did it by accident. I didn't do it on purpose. It's not like I had intention to do it. Leaned up against the wall, wasn't paying attention on Shabbos, and there happened to be a light switch and turned it off. I didn't have intention to do that. Okay, I transgressed the 614th commandment of don't be stupid, right? When you put your back against the wall, make sure there's no light switch on Shabbos, which may be true, but at the same time, I didn't do it on purpose. Comes on the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon says, the only way you could have done something by accident is because you must have done something, at some point in your life on purpose. In other words, you opened up your soul. Your body has become a vessel to sin, right? Because you did something on purpose. By doing something on purpose, it lets you make mistakes. It can cause you to make mistakes even by accident. But the Vilna Gaon says if you didn't do something on purpose, as a rebellion against God, whatever it is, it can be even something minor, doesn't matter. But if you did it on purpose, you opened yourself up to future, for future transgression, even by accident.
Right. That makes sense. Interesting.
I mean, that is a very, very powerful statement, because
that's
we
pretty
should say,
amazing.
well, why should our environment affect me? Why should I have any issues? What, you're not so strong in your beliefs. It's not a question of being strong in belief. It's a question of what the outside world, what the influence is, right? And a person could say, well, it's going to make my parents happy if I come, and it's the only time I can come. Okay, I understand. There's some people will still say it doesn't matter, right? You don't want to open yourself up. But, at the same time, a person has to realize what they're doing in this world, what their purpose is, and if the whole purpose is to get back to God in the first place, meaning in the next world, so we have to prepare in this world. So everything we do, even though we don't live our lives necessarily like this, everything we do has to be towards that goal. So everything I think and everything I do should be calculated, right? Is this a good thing for me? Is it a bad thing for me? And there were great rabbis that every single step they made was calculated. How much time it took them to, tie their shoes, the less time to tie shoes this way, so they did it that way, to waste less time, all these different things. There were individuals that lived their lives in a calculated way. Today, most people don't do anything in a calculated way. They just do.
On the
They get
flip
out,
side,
you
on the flip side of that coin, there are like many people who are some spiritual, some not, who are very calculated. And so, like, for example, mainly like with food and dietitian and stuff like that, I mean, they would literally look at every single ingredient on anything before they buy it. They'll figure out how much they can put in their food so they don't gain an extra pound. And so if people really would use that same energy towards Hashem, then their life of purity would become much richer as well. I would
Sure,
imagine.
but the problem is most people, the Mesilas Yesharim, Path of the Just, by Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, says exactly that. He said people don't think into what they're doing. The evil inclination is so strong, he just doesn't give you time to think. So
Right,
I
that's
use an
true.
example, it's like, I always thought, at least, my kids were younger, at least, you give a few spare minutes in the bathroom, and then I was like, they're banging down the door. It's like, I had 5 minutes to myself, and forget it. You don't even have that. So
Right.
that's the cause of the evil inclination. He doesn't give you a split second to think, right? So the Balei Musar, the rabbis who teach ethics say that every day, at some point during the day or before you go to sleep, you have to think about what you've done during the day. How did you speak to your kids? Did you accomplish what you wanted to see where a person's really holding, where a person's really holding in this world. That's what that's the essence of what we're doing here. All this other stuff is just fluff. It's all, it's all make believe, and people can just get caught up in all this other stuff. They forget exactly what the what the purpose is. So, back to your scenario, parents ask their kid to help them with the tree, and you're trying to raise yourself to a higher spiritual level, into a higher spiritual awareness, because it really is helping put up the tree, and the tinsel going to do anything? It puts a chink in an armor, right? Think of like King Arthur's court, right? You make like a little bit of a mark in the armor. Is it going to do anything? Over time, you make another one, a small other one, or whatever. Eventually, that's how the armor gets destroyed. But you see that by Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was like, totally anti-Torah, growing up till he was 40. And what changed him? He saw a hole in a rock. right? But he realized that a hole in a rock doesn't start overnight, right? How did that rock get a hole in it? Because water from above dripped on it.
Mm-hmm.
So do my
Right.
my, my best imitation, drip, drip, right? So you got the drips going down, and eventually over time, and it could be tens of hundreds of years, whatever it is, but it made a hole in the rock. So Rabbi Akiva said, if this can make a hole in the rock, and this is just water, imagine, if my heart is hard as hard as a rock, if you let a little bit in, what it could do.
Right.
So he realized from that that's how he came back to Torah. But, this is a challenge. This is a tremendous challenge that everybody has, Jew or non-Jew. And that's, you have issues where, in some ways you might say this isn't a problem. Other ways it might be, well, maybe it is a problem. Maybe this is something, this is going to be something negative in my life. And again, if a person has a doubt, they certainly have to go to someone who's competent, and ask them, is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? But that would probably be the aleph base of what a person should do. Should think about this action. But there could be, a number of factors involved. I mean, as we mentioned, if family is involved, that may be a tremendous pull, to want to do something. On the other hand, you got to see if other things, get offset. Is it going to be, a good gathering? Is it not going to be a good gathering? What are people going to talk about? These are things people might say, oh, you think this and you think that and you think the other thing, like, you're stuck with the family you're born into. That's true. That's true. But there are times where, yeah, it's better for me not to be there. And, if something is totally forbidden, okay, right? If something's not, then you still have to ask the question. You still have to ask the question, is it good or is it not, is it not good? I think people, what they do, and you can certainly tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what people do is use the thing with parents and family, as a total crutch. Like this guy who goes into marriage and he says, it's important for his family that he was there. Okay, that I understand. But he was there under protest.
That's
Like,
funny, right?
where do you draw, where do you draw the line? I think people go beyond and they say, well, since family is the most important thing, and it is important. I'm not saying not. The question is though, what are they dragging you into? Is it something that's going to benefit you in a way? Not that I'm only doing it for benefit, meaning is it going to benefit my soul? Is it going to help me grow more? Sometimes the answer may be no, and you still may have to do it, right? It depends. I don't think in this case there's, again, if it's something more parv, and there's technically nothing wrong with it. The family wanted to go bowling one night, and that'd be the only thing you could do with them or whatever. Is it the best thing to do? I wouldn't say it's the greatest thing to do, but that I wouldn't stand on my laurels on that. Again, it depends. It depends what it is. That's more. That's more parv. I think. I think putting up a tree and all that. That's not parv. That's something pretty serious. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's pagan, it's not pagan, whatever. Whatever it is. But it's the other issue is it goes against everything you believe in now. You came out of that. You don't want to go back to it. So now you're going to be a born again Noahide.
Right.
Or you're going to be a born again Jew, whatever the case is. But, this is something you came out of. So, people are going to say, come on, it doesn't mean anything. And, like, what do you care? And it's the family and whatever. Once you think about what it is and what you came out of, and I mean, you're not going to have to think, that far, then you're going to realize you've been duped for so many years and you've been lied to. Why in the world should I partake in it? Even if my parents want me to do it. I wasted so much time. Why should I, why should I bother? It's not, it's just going to get me angry because,
Right.
because of what it represents, and that's, and I think people can understand that. I just, in most cases, I don't think, I don't think they want to hear it.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I can
Right.
tell you I can tell you my own case, when people wanted me to go out to eat in a non-kosher restaurant, at a certain point, and I said no. Okay, that irked people. I mean, that's even without being obnoxious. It just irked people because they said, "Oh, he's different. He's saying, oh, he's better than us. He's not going to eat these places anymore like they used to." Blah blah blah. It makes people feel uncomfortable. But even if I went there, let's say it wasn't a problem. Let's say, I went there, I didn't eat anything. I just hung out there. It also looks bad. Like, what do you want to do being in a place that you're surrounded by, all this non-kosher food or whatever?
Right.
You can say, well, it's so important for the family, you should be there. That's a different, that's a different thing. And there is such an issue, of being in a place, even if you're not eating there, it looks bad. It's called Mari Zion. It looks bad, right? And someone's going to say, oh, see, he's sitting in there, and he looks like an Orthodox Jew, so it must be permissible to eat there. That's forbidden. Right. You're right. Even if you're not eating there, it doesn't matter. It looks bad. Other people are going to look at it like they're saying, like you're saying it's permissible. You're not saying it's permissible. You're there for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the reason is. And they're going to say, well, this is what it looks like. And they're going to come to the wrong conclusion. So therefore, if someone's going to come to the wrong conclusion, you can't be there. Like I went into many years ago, I take one of my kids to the bathroom in a non-kosher McDonald's. So the security guard, the non-kosher McDonald's in Israel. So there's a security guard there, and he says, "Sir," he said, "you can't go in there. It's not kosher." I was like, "Is the bathroom kosher?" He's like, "No, that's okay." So I said, "Thanks." So like he knew better. He's like, yeah, do right. As I say, not as I do, right? So so even walking in there might be problematic. But if you're going in there to use the bathroom and coming out, right, that's definitely less of an issue. But I mean, for a Jew, this is definitely an issue as well. Going, if you're in certain places that, non-kosher places that you shouldn't be in, and it doesn't matter what you're doing there, even if you're not eating there, someone could come to the wrong conclusion and say it's permissible to eat in there. That is forbidden even if you're not eating there. So that that doesn't apply. That doesn't apply to a non-Jew. But right. Again, all these things, a person. A person has to be careful of. It may not necessarily apply, in many ways to a non-Jew, but a non-Jew also, wherever they're coming from, still have to ask the question, right? They still have to ask the question whether what I'm doing is good for myself or not. And I just think people do things and they don't think how could it be forbidden? How could it be this? How could it be that? And they just use excuses to want to be able to do whatever, whatever they want to do. But because people get caught up on the bandwagon, they think family is the most important thing.
Right.
And again, family is important up to a point. Well, if they want you to be a heretic, I have to hang around with them. No, I don't think so. If they want you to go astray and do all kinds of forbidden things, I have to hang out with them. Well, family is the most important thing. Torah guides us. Torah tells us what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. So, there is gray, there is gray matter over here. Definitely true. Not everything is necessarily black and white. Thank God, a lot of things are. But that's how I would. That's how I would definitely handle it. It's a very touchy subject because.
Let me ask you.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the other side of this coin, there's something that was that had been on my mind a long time ago, in regarding to the idea of participating in any way. And a customer asked me one time, they asked me if because I'm in construction, I do pretty much all kind of remodeling and even home handyman repairs and stuff like that too. And so I get calls during the season.
Call William Hall for all your needs. All your building needs, call him.
And so I get people calling me and they'll ask me, can you put up my Christmas lights for me? And I just shoot them straight. I said, listen, we celebrate Hanukkah, so we're not really allowed to do that. I said, if you need me to take them down, I can. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if I take them down,
destroy them, I'd be more than happy.
And that's where I'm going next. You've got Exodus 34:13, Deuteronomy 7:5, even Micah 5 talks about it. Deuteronomy 12:3, break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, their idols. And so how do those verses? I know actually, how do they apply it to someone like me in a sense of thing? I'm not saying that I've gone to someone's house, like I said, and set their Santa Claus on fire or nothing like that. I'm just saying in general, how
Rudolph, you look a lot redder now.
I mean, if anything, is this just for us? Should we view these sacred verses as more emphasis on how seriously we should take this, as far as not being so
Well,
casual?
a non-Jew has to stay away from idolatry. That's clear. Now the Rambam, Maimonides holds that even outside of Israel, there's a mitzvah to destroy idols. Now the problem is if you destroy idols, you go to jail. It goes against the law of the land. So you can't,
Right.
you can't do that. I mean, in theory, if you could get away with it, then it should be permissible. But obviously, you got to live according to the law of the land.
Right.
So destroying idols and all that would apply to a Jew, not a non-Jew.
Okay.
Right? Non-Jew he has an obligation to stay away from idolatry and different forms of idolatry. Right? Not getting benefit from idolatry. Like I just saw there was a post recently about what to do with, what to do with Bibles. They have Bibles.
Right.
So someone said they buried them. Someone, so I said burn them. Doesn't matter if they're in Hebrew or not. Burn them. Right? You don't want anyone getting benefit from it, then, that's it. But when it comes to, like burning Santa or all that, that certainly wouldn't apply. A non-Jew doesn't have an obligation. Certainly, I guess if they want to, they could. They could take on this obligation like a Jew in different ways, even though it's not really applicable. But in your case, would you have an obligation to, what do you call it? To destroy their stuff?
Right.
No. Do I have an obligation to help them? I
And
don't
just
know why
to
you have an,
and just to
why you
be
have an obligation to
clear,
help them.
just to be clear, disclaimer to anybody who's watching this video: do not go and do this, get arrested, and say, "Well, the dude on Tanakh Talk said this is what we should do," because that's not what I'm saying. Okay, I'm just simply thinking in my mind. I'm thinking about like Pinchas, and what he had done. It wasn't his obligation to do that, but because of what he did, he was actually elevated because he went the next level for purity's sake. And so, anyway, that's kind of what kind of stemmed most of my convictions along the way, as far as to what level we would participate in it. And but likewise, I mean, you don't want to be. You've got to find if you're not. If my whole point, I guess, would be for the non-Jew. You don't want to be a nuisance in your neighborhood, if you want to look at it that way. Be holy, but don't make it a point to be so obnoxious that you're going to turn people away. I mean, the whole point is we're going to be a light, right? And so, like from my neighbors across the street, they're really, really good friends of ours. They just so happen to be Christian, and they know that we're not. They know that we are, Noahide, that we've abandoned the New Testament altogether. They know this, and so they have gone the way of not saying Merry Christmas to us. They will literally tell us Happy Hanukkah, and we're very gracious for that. And my reply usually is Happy Holidays to you guys, and it's a respectable.
So beautiful. It's beautiful.
I did
Love it.
I did just trim my beard a little. I'm just kidding. Okay, so I don't know. I'm just my heart goes out to people in this situation, whether you are trapped at home, and you're expected to follow along with these pagan festivals, and what do you do? I mean, some people really battle with that, like in a really deep way,
Right.
and it's kind of it can
Right.
be heartbreaking.
One thing you mentioned, I just want to clarify that. You mentioned about Pinchas. Keep in mind there are a lot of miracles that happened to Pinchas. He took two people, the head of a tribe, and this non-Jewish woman, and killed them like a shish kebab.
Right.
He took a spear. Now, if anybody would have killed him at that point, he was considered a pursuer. If anyone had killed him, they would have had the merit to do so. The only reason that he did what he did, first of all, Moshe Rabbeinu forgot what the halacha was in such a case, and he remembered the halacha and he did it. Now, had he not done it for the sake of heaven, because everyone looks at that parsha of Pinchas, and they look at him as a zealot and they look at him as a fanatic, and that's what the Torah is, and it's fanaticism. If it wasn't done 100% purely for the sake of heaven, then
he would have suffered.
Then it couldn't be done. Right. So people are going to say, "Yeah, I'm doing it for the sake of heaven." Blah blah blah. Like it's a crock. Like
right.
We're not on, we're not on that level. At the same time, Pinchas is given the covenant of the kahuna, right, of the priesthood. And God said, "Oh, He assuaged my anger." Well, when you think about it, he turned them into a shish kebab. God's
Right.
like, thank God for Pinchas. He saved the day. He brought peace. It's like a flamethrower, like zoom,
Right. Right.
like well, so people look at that and they look totally, totally opposite, right? So people say, yeah, we have to be like the Pinchases of the world. Yeah, we do in the appropriate time and with the,
In the
nobody,
right context.
very few people, if any, are going to have that ability to do it 100% for the sake of heaven. If he had a tinge, any tinge inside him whatsoever for taking revenge, that's it. He's liable. He's
Right.
liable for murder.
And there
Any
was.
one smidgen, he would have been liable.
Wouldn't there also have been a different outcome had he not been of the tribe of Levi?
What do you mean?
In other words, if he wasn't, like for example, I'm picturing myself. You see these people who are vigilantes, and they're going out killing rapists and killing murderers and whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and so what makes that wrong is that they're not on the side of the law. They don't have the license to do that. So,
Right.
so in Torah, when it comes down to stoning people and all this other stuff, I mean, there has to be a based in involved in that, right? Not just anybody would go pick up a
The
stone.
greatest basin in the history of man,
Has
the
never.
Sanhedrin, the basin of 71, right? In order to give off you have certain cases that they judge, you have other cases, the basin of 23, right? That can give the death penalty, but death
Right.
penalty was never given. Even so, it just shows the severity, of what the action, was. They
Right.
didn't just take people and kill them.
Right.
You make it, people make it sound like, oh, Torah says you kill this and kill that and whatever.
Right.
There were ways that it was done. They had to be warned. They had to be warned about the right thing. They had, there are a lot of different things, that had to happen. Basin doesn't want, Basin doesn't want to kill people.
Right.
The Jewish people in general don't want to kill people. We're not interested. If we have to, and that's the law, and and the criteria is met, we will do that. But we're not vigilantes to be.
Right.
We're not vigilantes to be vigilantes. You have to have proper. You have to have proper rabbinical authority. You have to know. We don't have any prophets today, but if there were prophets, they say, listen, we have to go to war and we have to do this. Well, their prophecy is a legit prophecy if all criteria is met because it's given by God. Okay, then we go out to war. You don't just go out to war for the sake of going out to war. You don't, start doing things because you feel like doing things or you want to take revenge. That's the whole question by the children of Yaakov when they kill the entire city of Shechem and they wipe them out. Now, the commentaries go to task why they deserved to be killed, and they did deserve to be killed. But at face value, when you look at it, what does it tell? What does it show? They got upset what happened to their sister. Their sister got violated, so you know what? We're going to destroy the entire city.
Right. For me,
so that also looks pretty bad. If you don't know anything, that also looks tremendously bad.
Right.
But yeah, you have to understand what the context was and what was, and what was going on.
Right.
It wasn't just like they just destroyed the whole city. They, there are reasons why they needed to be wiped out, but they weren't acting just on their own, and it was based on vengeance, right? That's the point. And Pinchas was not doing that either, because had he done that, he would have been killed. And if anyone would have killed him, he would have deserved to die.
Gotcha. Right.
He had the status of a pursuer. What do you do with a pursuer? You kill him. You stop him before he kills someone else or before he does something. Right? If you can stop him in a way you don't have to kill him, that's fine.
Okay.
If you can't stop him in that way, you have to kill him. You kill him. That's it. But it can only be done under certain terms. And people take this way, out of context. And I mean, think about the desecration of God's name that went on. Before that, 24,000 Jewish people were killed because of sitting with the women of Midian, and then you get somebody, the head of a tribe, no less, takes a non-Jewish woman, does the jitterbug in front of everybody.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty bad. That that is pretty bad. But if he doesn't, but the Torah is very clear. I mean, whatever, the oral Torah is very clear that if he doesn't do it for the right reason, Doesn't matter what the other person's doing. If it's not for the sake of heaven, he's a vigilante.
Right,
And then all people say he's a vigilante. You're right, only under that context. But under the context that we understand it, it's totally different. If there would have been one little smidgen of hatred or envy or whatever, revenge in exactly what he was doing, that's it. He would have been dead, or they would have killed him. Either way,
right.
Either way, and he certainly would have brought the house of peacehood on him, which although face value doesn't make a whole lot of sense because he's turned him into a shish kebab.
Very good, very good. Well, Rabbi, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great topic. I hope this has been helpful for the viewers that are out there now and the ones to come. It's definitely helped give me some clarity on how to answer whenever people ask me about that. So I really appreciate your insight, and I really appreciate all that you do.
Don't go burning up Santa Claus. That's what you learned from this.
Yeah.
No burning Santa Claus.
Yeah, let Santa live, at least on someone else's property anyway. So, all right, Rabbi, shalom to you.
I remember somebody was in the shopping mall, and they asked, they said, "Oh, what brand of Hasidic is he?" And that's Santa, right?
That's funny. I've never seen that coming to yarmulke before. Oh my gosh.
What Hasidic is he? What's the red dude? Where'd he come from?
That's funny. That's funny. You guys don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Facebook, Tanakh Talk. Click on the notifications bell next to the subscribe button if you want to get alerted every time there's a video playing. So anyway, so very good. Rabbi, once again, orthodoxconversion.com. If you guys know anybody who's looking to convert, or if you're just curious about it, this rabbi is probably one of the leading authorities in this move. So be sure to check him out, orthodoxconversion.com. And Rabbi, what's your email address?
Rabbi Chaim Kaufman at gmail.com. RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN. I know it's strange because that's how my father spelled it, but at gmail.com.
Awesome. See you guys next time. Shalom. Take care, Rabbi.
Shalom, everyone.